Planning Commission podcast is a spirited discussion with myself and a couple of my longtime colleagues in the profession. Our discussions are based solely on our own opinions and do not reflect the opinions or views of our employers, the American Planning Association, or even our alma maters. So grab a seat in the back of City Hall, dig out an old copy of Robert's Rules, and for goodness sakes, read your packet. The Planning Commission is now in session.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Planning Commission podcast. Today, busted, bankrupt Big Box Boondoggles.
No sensationalism there.
We're gonna go
Big Box Boondoggles.
We're gonna go big and use as many words to start with the letter B apparently as possible. So the commission is in session. First order of business. We need to look at minutes from our previous episode.
Ooh.
Donald Shoup.
Ooh.
Man, our previous episode with Donald Shoup, we'll hit on that. I want to know, what were your takeaways from that episode? Anything that stuck out to you? I mean, man, there were some moments in that one, right? Anything that worth highlighting, though?
I've been craving a massage all week since we did that one. My neck is stiff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something stiff. I mean, it was ridiculous how I don't think we're going to be a clean podcast after that one anymore.
Yeah. Our innocence is gone, right? Yeah.
I was going to go with something like full on academic in the sense I was like, wow, man, you know, to me, of course, those takeaways, it was such a fun episode, but also like he summarized in his 3 principles with going back to Henry Ford. And like, I'm going, he just did a 400 level grad school class in about 5 minutes.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, I'm just going,
seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that was an impression of mine. Any other things on the minutes there?
I was such a fangirl because I remember reading the one chapter, whatever that was assigned in the class I took. And it was so weird. I was just like, this is the guy, this is the dude, because I remember reading that and thinking, this makes so much sense. Why don't we do this? It's the dude.
I mean, I hope for his sake and our sake, I mean, everything that he's been espousing and talking about doing this for 50 years and finally starting to see a shift in those tectonic plates with not just the same 5 or 6 cities that do those kind of things doing it, but others. And I think that's ultimately good for the profession and hopefully good for us. And looking back of things we tried to do a decade or so ago that still haven't come to fruition, maybe there's some hope.
Yeah, no kidding.
But also depressing because it took us 50 years to do that. Come on, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's got to feel good about that. But he said, I'm an old man, right? I mean, that's got to be tough to watch that. All right, can I have a motion to approve last meeting minutes?
Ooh, so moved.
Okay,
second.
Perfect. There we go. All right, moving forward, consent agenda. Next episode, Christmas episode. Oh man, we're gonna have some fun. What have we done this year to deserve a present from Santa, and why might we or others deserve a big old lump of coal?
That's a nice list.
That is going to be the topic of the Christmas episode that we have coming forward before the end of the year, before we all take a little bit of a hiatus. And already, man, I think we've got, I don't even know, 8 or 9 people lined up in January and probably to February and already into March. It's crazy. Lots of good people. I know, man. It's fun. I can't believe who's saying yes. Do they know that they're going to be on? So,
they know. Do they know what we're talking about? They know, right? Or do you just bring him in? You're like, it's a highly academic podcast.
We're in the top 10% of Buzzsprout. That means something. That gets people in.
Nobody knows what Buzzsprout is except for people that podcast.
I can think of Brussels sprouts every time I see that. So
oh my gosh. Okay, what else is on the consent agenda?
Still looking for sponsors, Buzzsprout. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it. But we also pay you. So anyway. All right. Consent agenda. I'm going to consider that approved. Moving forward to new item, discussion item. That's where we're going to get going on today's episode. Busted, bankrupt Big Box Boondoggle. I have a question for you. what's the opposite of big box, right? Our local stores, our local places that we like to hang out. It just got me thinking. The concept of third place, I love that concept, right? Places that we go to that we enjoy hanging out in, that isn't work, that isn't home, but it's our go-to, right? For many, it could be your neighborhood pub or something. It could be some sort of, I've seen all sorts of different little boutique stores, whatever. What are yours? What's your third place? Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Koselik, what are places that you like to go to?
I'm gonna use a place that we've all been to together. The Palmer Bar.
Oh,
The Palmer Bar is one of my
clarify. Palmer, Alaska.
Palmer, Alaska, the Palmer Bar. It's in downtown Palmer, which was a planned city during we could talk all
Yes.
Are you
Palmer's
talking
like
about the one that's in the old general store?
Yeah,
They're off the square.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
all right.
everything.
Sorry.
Listen, to be honest, let's tell people, Palmer's downtown is that big, and so everything is right on the square. But so it's so funny. It's not, I mean, it's a bar. It has a bar in it, and you can drink cocktails,
food, and
but you can get a steak and a baked potato and the best hamburger, for miles. And friendly staff. You can bring your children. It's really a family friendly place. And
we need a future episode on lodging stories.
Oh,
I think Chris has one from up there as well as
my
I
gosh.
do. So let's not
the
belabor.
Eagle Hotel. Come on. Okay.
That point.
I love it there. I love it there. And it's funny, before I moved out to Alaska, all that, it was 10 years ago now. What was really interesting is I had never been to places, so many, like there's just not a lot up here, right? And the infrastructure is limited and things. And I had never been to so many places that like had multiple uses for a spot. I mean, every bar serves a little bit of something to eat, and every hotel has a like nice kind of a bar that like local people will go to, or restaurants are in hotels that people will go to. And it's like, we're going to the hotel restaurant. They're like, yeah, so-and-so's uncle owns it. We got to go in there and see everybody. I mean, it's so cool. So yeah, hands down, Palmer Bar. Today is what we call Reward Friday. We've been good all week. And
wow, you were ready for this question without even knowing.
Wow.
Palmer Bar. It's Friday nights. Friday nights we go and have Reward Friday with my old planner friends out there. So it's
karaoke, but everybody has to sing Jewel because she's the only Alaska native, right?
There's no karaoke, but there is a jukebox.
A jukebox.
It's electronic now.
So there's an interesting, and Jess is bringing that full circle because it was in Palmer where we first talked about the property tax production of a big box store related to downtown. And today's guest is really the pioneer of a lot of that. I'm going to go a little bit of a different twist. I don't know if it actually qualifies. It's certainly trendy, but this whole thing now about like urban speakeasies and bringing that back as these bars and things, and adding maybe a little bit of maybe soft intrigue, maybe sterilized intrigue to the urban environment, but definitely different, and definitely businesses that are taking these kind of back alley and probably these spots and buildings that have been impossible to lease over the years and doing something with them.
Good call.
Oh my God. You know where one of the coolest speakeasies I've ever been in is in Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha.
I'm not kidding you. It's like, it's the coolest. I'll have to tell you guys.
I say mine was in Louisville, Kentucky.
See, this is amazing.
So yeah,
it had the best like hidden door.
All right. So I'm curious about Chris's. I'm thinking I think if you were to ask a lot of people, maybe in some suburban areas, their third place is the sample line at Costco, which I know is Chris's.
Oh yeah.
I just had to take that trek a week ago to Costco. I try to avoid it like the plague. Good stuff, but I don't like humanity. They got good stuff. I'm not a big fan of people lose their damn mind. Free water. Want to try this water? What? Free water? Yes, let's do it.
Best hot dog.
Oh God. No, my third place. It's kind of a new one. Don knows it. And I dig it, man. I shouldn't, but I do. I love a good cigar. And there's a place that opened up a couple years ago. I've known the owner of it and his dad for years because he had a cigar shop in downtown Boise. But he has since opened up it's basically a wine and cigar place that you can sit inside, outside. They've got live music. They got a food truck. It's just my bliss, man. It's a fun place to go hang out, relax. It's quiet, and it's in a part of town that's really starting to come onto its own, which I love. And yeah, I don't know, it's just a really fun place to go and get away from it and you wouldn't even know it when you roll into it. It's kind of small from the front end, but man, fun place to go. So that's my third place. So
listen, all right. I think
all of us like to drink. All three of us pointed out to something that has alcohol.
And see, if we had Costco's in Idaho that served liquor, we could, combine all that together. So.
Yes. But what I was going to say is that our friendiversary for the three of us happened in a cigar bar.
That's right.
That is true. That is where we really became. I know we don't have to go back to that one, but I think we should do like a friendiversary reunion at this new place. What do you think? Like do a podcast I'm down for there. That. I'm into it.
I'm good with that. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next discussion item before we get to our action item. Discussion item number 2, the whiskey pairing. Commissioner Kostelik, take it away.
So this week's guest, and we haven't introduced him yet, Joe Minicozzi with Urban 3. And Joe's big thing, especially now in this property tax analysis, is showing how a lot of these suburban, what we would call estates, are essentially subsidized by our denser urban environment. So today, my whiskey pairing is the Family Estate bottled Willet Rye. Yeah, wow. Family Estate bottled with an extra catch. I have the Joe Minicozzi Mini Koozie.
Oh man, you are prepped for that.
Yeah.
Are we doing public math today? Because that gets me really excited. Anxious.
Do the math. He also has the count on his stickers. If you're watching online, you can see the do the math count stickers. We'll go over some of the other stickers that Joe has in his collection as we get
2 big box. Right? Isn't that how the count?
When I am alone, I count myself. I love
nice. Well done. All right, good. That's good. That's a kind of a highbrow. I think that's a kind of a highbrow bottle you got there, K-Man.
Vampires are always highbrow, so I think that was appropriate.
All right, well, let's move forward to our action item of the day of our agenda. Busted Bankrupt Big Box Boondoggle. We want to introduce the one, the only Joe Minicozzi, national expert on this subject. Holy cow, Joe Minicozzi, it is good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the Planning Commission podcast. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I do have a question. Can you get an Arnold Palmer in Palmer's?
Ooh.
Oh, absolutely. But Arnold Palmer, here's what's weird. I just moved back up to Alaska from Florida, and Arnold Palmer is that's the whole thing. He's a big deal down there. And I was like, does he know anything about Palmer, Alaska? And everybody's like, what are you talking about?
There's not even a golf course in Palmer, Alaska. So.
Are you kidding? There is.
There is.
The city owns it. The city owns the Palmer.
When I was doing the work up there, I never got up there in a time of year I could play it because I was always up there in winter. So
come on up into June. We can play golf all night. The last tee time is at like 10 p.m. That's I don't know. I'm making things up. Somebody Google that. Right, okay.
They're open from June 6th through June 8th. Yes. Get up there. Hurry up before.
Y'all.
All right, Joe. Let's get to you. You're the reason why we're here, and we bothered you and made you come on this, wonderful show. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell our audience all about you, your background, and everything that is wonderful about why you're even on this podcast.
Well, my name is Joe Minicozzi. I am trained originally as an architect, and then I went to grad school and got a master's of urban design with a concentration in real estate development. Do y'all mind if I throw a little show up for a second? I know this is a podcast. This is going to be very much a spoken word thing, but I do have some pictures to share with you all. Oh, you need to enable me to let me see this. Show this.
You do your thing. You're the first to bring a show and tell. I
always show pictures.
So we had Jeff Speck bring his own whiskey, and now we have Joe with his own show and tell. We're going to see what he pulls out of the pillowcase.
Again, it's all these highbrow
So-
bougie guys.
Well, this is going to give a little bit of my background. One is where I'm from. I'm from Rome, New York, which is in upstate New York, and it's on the Erie Canal. And Rome is
God,
such a
I need
dump.
popcorn for this. Jeez, this is
Ah,
getting good.
gorgeous.
All right.
I
And by the
I
way,
don't know
the
if y'all
Erie
know-
Canal was the first conduit of sprawl in the United States, right?
Well, hang on, we'll get there.
Okay. All right.
Isn't Is it
Let
Rome
the man
and Utica?
talk. Shut up.
Hey, I need to. This is very important. Is it like Road Trip, that old terrible movie? They are in Utica. They go all the way to
It's
Texas.
Utica, not Utica.
That's what I meant.
Utica.
All right.
These are all Greek and Roman words that were swept through America. A lot of cities changed their names: Rome, Schenectady, Utica, Syracuse. Those are all Greco-Roman names. But what I love
we're
about
seeing
this
a map
image,
of New York, by the way.
yeah, you're seeing a map of New
Yes,
York. You're
yes.
also seeing an image from our Chamber of Commerce explaining that Rome is in the middle of all the action of upstate New York. Now, New York's a pretty big state. So, hey, if you're in Albany, why not drive 2 hours to Rome? Well, one of the reasons why they say this is because there's nothing to do in Rome. So the Erie Canal started in Rome and went east and west from there. If anybody's ever
Ooh.
sang that Erie Canal song with a mule named Sal,
Yep.
they've talked about my hometown. And as Don pointed out, it was the connector piece that connected Chicago to New York, which made Chicago explode. The Erie Canal was a pretty big deal. My hometown was actually vied for being a state capital. This is a shot down Main Street. And when I was a kid, our economy was struggling. It was a Rust Belt town. All of our industry left. And somebody came up with the great idea of rebuilding Fort Stanwix, which is a Revolutionary War fort. And I don't know if y'all remember your pivotal battles of the Revolutionary War history, but
Every
Mhm.
one of them.
Of
all of
course.
you
them.
remember the Battle
course
of
we
Fort
do.
Stanwix.
Of
Yeah,
course.
it was insignificant, but it was a Hail Mary pass to try to get some money out of the federal government to do something. Now we had this inconvenient truth that our city was built where the damn fort was. So when I was a kid, they tore all of downtown down, and we got a big wooden fort in the middle of our downtown.
Oh my
that we-
gosh.
Occasionally get a Canadian tourist shows up, and that's about it. Now hold on a second. This isn't the only thing that they did, because it was the 70s. So if that wasn't good enough, they took the rest of downtown and made an urban renewal district. They built a pedestrian mall because, hey man, it's the 70s. We need a pedestrian mall, man. Like,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Everyone
built a
needs to
plaza.
know. With
Yeah, they
this
built-
title,
The
the sacking of Rome. Oh my gosh.
It was the 70s. It was a hacky sack, right?
yeah, hacky sack wasn't big then, but then they built a
Oh,
plaza. They built a plaza on the pedestrian mall because apparently 12 acres of open space wasn't good enough. A couple parking garages, because y'all are going to drive to Rome and visit our wooden fort, a new city hall. And because that parking garage was way too far away from City Hall, at about like 110 feet away, they built a surface lot next to the City Hall. They built a mall on the other side of the highway. And then the craziest thing ever was like Le Corbusier meets the Ponte Vecchio. They built this big concrete structure that shot out over the highway with stores on it. All of the buildings that were in this project area got leveled. So
that first image you showed us looking down Main Street with the massing and great urbanism
gone.
now looks like a suburban bank.
It was now think of
KFC's
this.
there.
Well, this bank building that's right here, that's in this image, was my Uncle Joe's pastry shop. My Uncle Joe paid my mom $300 to name me Joe. That's how I got my name. But seriously, I'm not making this up.
I'm
I'm
gonna
Italian,
try
like me.
that with my next niece or nephew. I'd be like, look,
wow.
Naming rights.
$300.
Yeah, $300 is a lot of money in 1969. And so, this is eminent domain. My uncle's building and business got taken. As a kid, I grew up in Christmas parties and Thanksgivings with my Uncle Joe, having some wine and just going nuts about urban renewal. I had no idea. I was like a kid, But my Uncle Joe was a trooper. He was, he would still do birthday cakes about the fort on every Fort Stanwix days and all of this stuff. Yeah. And so this is my life experience growing up. This is the church that I went to church in, and it's a big red sandstone church right next to the fort. It's one of the few buildings that was saved. I fell in love with architecture. My grandfather was a carpenter, and I decided, I don't want to deal with lake effect snow anymore. I want to go to University of Miami and sit on a beach.
yeah, you do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I chose the wrong profession. Architecture schools, you don't leave the damn building. And while I was there, Liz Plater-Zyberk and Andreas Dwani were two of my professors. There's, a lot of them were teaching us new urbanism. And, we didn't know what it was. And I grew up in a town that was walkable. It was all of this stuff of new urbanism, old urbanism. We just eliminated it. And I used to sit and talk with Liz all the time. I'm like, how do you help my town that's pretty much committed Harry Carey? And she's like, that is unbelievable what you've been through, but we're dealing with this stuff and this stuff, all this sprawl. They used to take us in Andreas would load us up in minivans in the architecture school and drive us out into suburban Miami and just like push us out of the minivan. We didn't have cell phones back then. There was you had paper maps, and he would tell us, you've got a half hour to get a gallon of milk. And then he would just leave us. And we'd be like wandering around these suburban areas looking for a gallon of milk. And, we'd lampoon these things, right? This sprawl, but it's real places, and I don't know. That was an influence to me. I kind of was like, well, this is interesting, the city planning stuff. But then I went to another Rome, and I lived in Rome, Italy, in Campo de Fiore. And my apartment overlooked the market. I, went to the university in the next building over, and I ate out of the market. And it really kind of dawned on me. I'm like, how did this Rome survive 2,000 years? And my Rome is dead as a doornail. So
your Rome has a KFC though. I mean,
downtown,
what are you complaining
like
about?
it's a walkable KFC.
It's finger licking good and everything, man.
It's finger licking good. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess our Kmart is walkable, but the Dollar General is too, but the Walmart isn't. But anyway, so this is kind of like I knew there was something more than design that was an issue, and it made me more curious to start figuring out what are the factors that make cities change.
So did they not clear
out? My background.
Did they not clear out an urban renewal in Rome to build the Colosseum? I thought that was like the story.
Yeah, possibly. So that's the visual story of answering that question. I went to grad school and then talked my way into a real estate finance job in Boston. And it was, if y'all ever saw that movie, The Big Short, it was just like The Big Short. I used to sit and talk with finance officers that are in charge of large assets. And this is, it's essentially a pension fund. It's when you buy health insurance, a piece of your money goes into a real estate portfolio. So John Hancock they owned $4.3 billion across the country. And my job as an architect was to go and look at the buildings that we bought. And I would seriously sit there with some of these asset managers. And I was like, hey, Bill, this is a Class A office building in Tacoma. And I would hold up the picture and I would say, this is a Class A office building in Topeka. Do you see the difference? And they're like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm like, look at the pictures. And they're like, well, that one's leased up at an 85% lease up with an NOI of blah, blah, blah. And this one's got a lease up rate of blah, blah. I'm like, no. Look at the pictures. And they're like, where are you getting at? I'm like, it's the same damn building. We bought the same damn building in two different climates. And you know how they fall apart? And they're like, what does that matter? I'm like, we spend $100 million a year fixing buildings. Now, making $15 an hour, I was like, that's a lot of money. And for them, they're just like, whatever, we'll sell it eventually. So let that wash over you for a second. We're planning cities and working on cities. There's a whole other game going on.
Oh, yeah.
Called real estate finance.
Yeah.
And if we don't understand that, how can we be a planner? Think of this. Could you imagine a figure skating competition where the judges never wore skates before in their life? Like, would you let them be a judge? So sorry, planners. I have a real hard time if planners don't understand the system that they're judging. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Well said.
Here. Oh, okay. I'll just try not to start preaching about it, but it's been so many times in my career where I'm just going, why are we not thinking through all of these things? So anyway, I do have a question for you, Joe. Can you tell us, now that we're talking about that real estate finance, can you tell us about your property tax analysis? And I mean, what is that? Since your name is Joe, what does that mean to Joe Schmo? I mean, our regular, every average citizen, like, why should they care? Can we boil it down a little bit? Or maybe it's just real complicated. Nobody understands it. Like, what do you think?
It's not complicated.
Good.
I hate to say it. It's like, So, flash forward, I worked in real estate finance. I was a zoning administrator in West Palm Beach, Florida. Ended up meeting a girl in Western North Carolina and moved up here and quit my job. And
Of
this is how I
course.
ended up. Yeah, it happens.
The way it
This is
goes.
how I ended up in Asheville. And then I ended up working for a real estate developer in downtown Asheville called Public Interest Projects.
Mhm.
And Pat Whalen, the president of Public Interest Projects, used to deliver the amazing PowerPoint called the quintessential economic and environmental argument for urbanism. So I would sit here and watch my boss, who was an attorney, deliver this PowerPoint presentation. And I was like, this is great, but you're killing the audience. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, people need to understand this stuff. I'm like, Pat, the people isn't a jury, And so Pat's like arguing like an attorney. He's gonna like run you over intellectually, throw it in reverse and back over you to make sure that you got his point. I'm like, you got to tell a story. And what I found that was interesting was his story on. I'm going to share slides again. I'll explain this orally as well as the slides visually. But there was a building that we rehabbed called it was an old JCPenney's department store. And to me, this was the aha moment, is that here's a building that we rehabbed, ground floor retail, second floor office, and the upper 4 stories. It's a 6-story building. So the upper 4 stories were residential. The city did a streetscape project. So back in the 90s, the city invested in, public infrastructure, the public realm, sidewalk, garbage can, bike racks, all of that. Now, y'all know when you do an urban streetscape, they're super expensive. So it's Appalachia. People complain when someone spends money. So of course, everybody's like, this is too expensive. You're subsidizing these people. And Pat was like, well, okay, we took the building from 300,000 to 11 million. So what that represents is a 3,500% increase in taxes. So do you have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? Go out and buy 3,500% more garbage cans. And again, people have biases, and it's the way that we talk about things. I just let people confess. They'll tell you their biases. So immediately people were just like, well, that's great and everything. That's $11 million. We've got this Walmart that's 20 million. Fair enough. But realize that the city is a limited amount of land. The county more so. Counties can't annex the next county over. So if you bring land into it and say, this is the gross number, a Walmart is 20 million, our building's 11 million, but it's apples and oranges, because one is 34 acres, the Walmart, and the building that we have is 0.2 acres. So when you look at their tax production per acre, we're producing 100 times more property taxes, is $634,000 worth of taxes per acre versus the Walmart $6,000 of taxes. So when I talk to folks, I'm like, what do you want? Do you want more money? Because you only have a limited commodity. Shouldn't you want more money? And then the retail taxes, our building's about double the retail tax production of a Walmart at 84,000 versus 48,000. Obviously, we have residents and they don't at 90 residents per acre versus their 0. And we also have more jobs at 74 jobs per acre versus the Walmart at 6 jobs per acre. And this is real simple. It's just look at an average Walmart's 200 employees per Walmart. They publicly report that in their public report documents. Our building, I just called up the businesses and said, how many employees do you have? And then just put the numbers down there. The tax data you can get out of the tax files on any publicly accessible GIS site. So this is just, it's hiding in plain sight. It was because making things apples to apples this way starts to allow people to see the productivity difference, if that makes sense. But this is go ahead.
And I look at it like, here, well, look, the Walmart pays a big check every year, but the Walmart, even in an Asheville example, is pretty much the footprint of all of downtown.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah.
So from a planning perspective, and I'll bring up the next one, the church lady, isn't that spatial?
And
With
that's
the spatial
spatial.
analysis. you
And
do.
that's
Joe.
spatial.
Yes, isn't that spatial?
That's special.
Given that
Well-
counties can't annex, and counties are collecting our property taxes for the most part. There's other agencies that do that. So if we're a practicing planner and we're interested in looking at this, do the math side of things, how do you incorporate this into a comprehensive plan, zoning, economic development plan, transportation plan?
Sure. And I want to wrap into maybe like, let's just start with the why. Why do taxes matter? Well, taxes pay for stuff, right? So if you want to buy a pipe or a piece of asphalt or a bench or a bike rack, you got to get money from somewhere. So property taxes in most states in the United States cover the bill for how we get money to pay for government. So there's actually an implicit relationship between, and actually, if you look up the rules, your charter of your city or your county, cities and counties are incorporated. They're corporations. So there's a social contract that happens when a land boundary gets made into a political boundary. So I pay taxes and you provide me services. Now, my land would be worth nothing until you run a pipe, a sidewalk, and a street to it, right? So I should pay you the taxes back to cover that nut. It's that simple. You know, why aren't we doing 2-drink minimums for since you all are talking drinking? Like, why don't we have like, this is what you owe the government at the very least for your tax base. I would argue that we need to really rethink property taxes altogether. Why should property value matter? We should charge you, like when I bought this iPhone, don't you think Apple figured out what the cost of the glass was before they sold it to me? Of course. So why don't we do that with a pipe? And so we argue that when you do a comp plan, you do the same thing. Run the numbers on what you look like financially before you start planning. Now, in defense of citizens, when we run a comp plan process, and you all know your planners, who shows up at a comp plan meeting? Residents who live out in suburbia, you know, and then what they're going to argue for is, this is what I want in my neighborhood. I'm missing a dog park, blah, blah, blah. It's like, fine. That's great. We'll note that. We all do little sticky dot sessions and put little numbers up in a survey, which is incredibly patronizing, but whatever. When we do a presentation, I want to show you the value of your downtown and whether or not you're covering the cost of your community, because the downtowns are where you're getting all of your money. And citizens don't live downtown. So they want to extract all that revenue out of the golden goose and use it into their neighborhoods because their neighborhoods are highly subsidized. Does that make sense? You know, it was the Nixon administration in 1972, I think, published a document called The Cost of Sprawl.
Nixon.
If we know this exists. Nixon.
Right.
Nixon. You know, and before that, it was Ronald Coase, who won a Nobel Prize in the 1960s, doing the same thing. So we've known the math exists, but we haven't acknowledged the fact that the citizen who lives in single family detached housing in Sprawlville, they've been paid to move out there. They're not stupid. You know,
And I
that's a
think
subsidy.
about, back to your Walmart example here, we moan and complain about a relatively modest streetscape investment in downtown. And in some cases that infrastructure is 100 years old, but we'll stumble all over ourselves to widen the intersection for the Walmart so that suburban person that's heavily subsidized isn't inconvenienced at all.
Well, I would just, in all of our work, whenever we talk, and y'all have seen my presentation, I actually present the head of Walmart's real estate. And I actually saw him present at the International Association of Assessing Officers Conference. I don't know if y'all ever hang out with assessors. It makes a planning conference feel like Burning Man. It's the squarest conference ever. Assessors are massive nerds.
That's a 5-drink minimum at a conference like that.
It's a tough conference. And
yeah,
but you know, not to say that they're not evil people. They're just assessors.
Yeah.
It's a very boring kind of industry. But and they're also got the hardest job in government because you get attacked constantly. No one likes to pay taxes. Yeah. There's a great colonial barb that I love, which is, don't tax me, don't tax the fellow behind the tree. Like, we used to say that when we were colonists. We threw tea in the harbor because we didn't want to pay taxes. It is American to hate taxes. I get it. So this guy from Walmart gets up and does this amazing presentation on how cheap Walmarts are. And I'm sitting there in the audience drinking my coffee, and I'm like, this is awesome. 3,000 assessors, one meeting, you're getting all of your property tax bills lowered. That is brilliant. And so I was like having a coronary, because I was like, why does no one care that he's basically saying we're not paying taxes? In defense of assessors, they're agnostic. If it's a pile of junk building, it's a pile of junk building, right? You can't make value out of nothing.
It goes beyond that too, because I mean, I did a project a few years ago, and I won't tell the whole story, but it was part of it. I did a ride along with the local police department, and the long and short of it was, there was a break-in at a gym in a car, and the purse was stolen, and lo and behold, we end up at Walmart, and the conversation then turned to, I started doing some of that research and finding out that basically, if you get a Walmart, and I hate to keep picking on them, I don't think they're necessarily the only big box that this pertains to, but the back of the envelope guess or estimate is that you should expect your police department to be called to that store at least twice a day. And you're kind of going,
Wow.
whoa,
Well,
wait a minute.
hang on,
There's another.
hang on, Chris.
Oh, we have a slide. I
You-
think we have.
No, you used
Oh.
a word I will never use, which is you said estimate, guess, or whatever. So it is a fact that the
Okay.
average Walmart consumes more in police services than it pays in
Yeah.
property taxes. So let's just do
Yeah.
the math right now. The
Yeah.
average Walmart
I don't want
pays
to
about
do this math anymore.
come on, it's simple. It's simple. Look, if there's a great quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is people commonly joke, "I'm not good at math."
Oh, I'm
Which
good
is-
at math. This is
Well-
terrifying is what's happening to me.
No, it's like if I were to say I can't read, you'd call me an illiterate dolt. Yet if I say I can't do math, somehow that's comical. Look, it's simple logic. So the average Walmart pays $250,000 in taxes to 250. The average cost of services for a Walmart is about 2.5 police officers. So the average salary of a police officer is about $40,000 a year times 2 is 80,000, right?
Probably more than
If
that.
any of us that have been in consulting or business or whatever, when you bill
Overhead.
my time, when you bill my time, I have to charge 2.5 to 3 times my rate to
Yeah.
cover my
Yeah.
overhead, insurance, and everything like that. So it's 80,000 times 2.5. What is that?
At least. Yeah. At least.
That's
200,000.
about
200,000.
200K. Yeah.
That's my
That's-
panic math right here. 200,000.
yeah, 200,000. Now you have to go buy a police car, right? How expensive are those? It's got to
45
have a
grand.
nitrous kit. It's got to put a
Yeah.
computer in it. No, you're talking close
Probably
to
100.
80,000 for the police car.
Yeah.
Oh.
Closer to 100. Now you got to go buy a gun, right? You've got to have a facility to have some office somewhere. You
Training
need to
a
have a
police
legal
officer.
department.
Okay, we've
once
just
you
got to
start
like $1
adding this all
million
up,
dollars.
It's about 350. If you Google Bloomberg magazine did an incredible piece called "The Cost of Walmart," and it's Bloomberg. If you Google Bloomberg Walmart police, the article will come up on the internet. It's just, and it's good. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Every time somebody
Yeah.
tries to criticize Walmart, I'm like, don't fault them for it.
They're just
If you're
following
not
your
do-
local laws. If you have laws
Correct.
that are different, they will, in most cases, come around, or they're not going to be there.
Yeah, it's like, so they have a policy that, and they're not going to hide it. They have a policy where they just do is like, you can go to a Walmart without your receipt because they don't want to have to deal with all the paperwork and the extra stuff. And they figured out the math that it's cheaper for them to just have you come in with your
Yeah.
can of LaCroix and then you can get your money back for it. Well, people have figured out I can go steal the can of LaCroix, bring it back to Walmart and get paid for it. It's not everybody, but it happens. They call it leakage at Walmart. And again, it's just,
Yeah.
we have
Leakage.
to, we have to be adults and realize that we need to ask questions and not be afraid of this stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So I want to follow up on that, Joe, because I am a standing commissioner, and I hear what you're saying all the time on that side of the fence, which is, whatever the proposal is, oh, it's going to harm my property taxes. Okay, so we, what degree of an evaluation do we need to consider? On the flip side, I've heard the opposite. New sidewalk. Oh, it's going to increase my property value and I don't want to pay the tax. Like, holy cow, which side of this argument are we trying to make? But I want to ask the question about our general profession, because I don't really ever see a fiscal and economic analysis in my packet about any kind of an application, no matter what it is, residential, commercial, or otherwise. So I'm just kind of curious, why don't we do that? Why is it that we just don't, as a profession, do the analysis that you mentioned at the beginning of this discussion that should be pretty foundational?
I don't know. I actually have a really, I have a lot of empathy since this is the planning commission. I have a lot of empathy for the planning commissioners and the city council or county commission or whomever. I don't mean to be patronizing with this, but you win a popularity contest and the next thing you know, you're on the board of directors managing a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's really, really complicated. And, these people have day jobs, particularly for a smaller town, like maybe someplace like Palmer, Alaska, you've got to deal with somebody's dog ate somebody's cat, and you got the telephone calls the mayor, and it's like, oh God, really? And then there's like some bozo doing something stupid. And then you go into this commission meeting and you have to deal with the planning director getting up and going, well, the FAR of this is a 62.7 cap rate, blah, 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 or a TDM model. Like, who the hell wants to hear that?
I like how
And
he's
you're
doing
just
the
like,
robot apparently too, as he's talking.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about? And I'm guilty as charged. I used to manage one of the first form-based codes east of the Mississippi. And I was like, well, this is a type 2 building, because it's language that I understood. And it's like, we have to kind of step out of that for a second and realize our role in to facilitate communication. And, when think of it, let's put a different profession in an example. When you sit with your doctor and they start going through all this gibberish, when they tell me my blood pressure, I'm like, is that good? I don't know. It's not part of my language to know my 180/20. I don't know what that means.
Well, I think about it like you have a 300-page traffic study that's based on a lot of pseudoscience that we mandate, require, we discuss, we react to, but we can't do a known thing, right? And at least try to project the economic return of a development, right? There's a parallel there in what we're requiring and what should be requiring, but for some reason, here's 300 pages of this and you get not even a sentence about economic return.
Well, I think in the comment of how do you do this, when I first started doing this stuff, I mean, I literally showed up in Seattle at the Smart Growth Conference. And there was this thing, I don't know if you heard about it. It's called a recession that happened back in 2009.
Sorry, I was in Alaska. It was terrible.
Yeah. I worked in real estate development. It was horrendous. So basically, we're shutting the real estate development company down. I was effectively being laid off, which happens in real estate development. To all the planners in the room, it is not fun working in real estate development. Everybody is not driving around in a BMW and Mercedes and has a yacht. Like, some of us are just operating on the margins, trying to do the right thing. And when a recession hit, it's like having your whole world fall apart. Money doesn't still magically fall into your bank account called taxes. So anyway, I was presenting and I used a quote from, what's his name? Mark Twain. A person who won't read has no advantage over one who can't read. A person who won't read has no advantage over one who can't read. And I roll in there and I'm like, hey, let's talk about taxation. And I had my hand in the air with that quote on the wall. And I said, so who in this room has read your local property tax system to understand how assessment works? And not a single hand went up. I was expecting there's always a couple planner nerds that are like, oh, I totally know about assessment processes. But no one said that. And I was like, holy shit, it's pardon the language, but I was like,
all good.
Not a
Technical
single
term.
person. Yeah. Poo-poo, holy poo-poo. And I was like, I got mad. I was like, wait a minute, I'm an artist. Like, I'm trained in architecture, right? I draw pictures. I didn't take a statistics class. I like bombed calculus. I'm not like a mathlete, and I figured this stuff out. And
Wait, did you just say a mathlete?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a new one. I've not heard that.
You've never heard of that?
Where have I been?
You've never seen the movie Mean Girls. That's why you don't know what a mathlete is.
Why am I watching Mean Girls? I mean,
that's why.
Because it's a cult classic.
So anyway, I was just like, well, here's how you do it. You take the value of the I literally walked people through. You just go into the assessor's files, you find the taxable value, divide it by the area of the parcel, value per acre.
Boom.
How hard is that?
Why are you giving away all the math secrets on this podcast?
Oh, yeah,
well, and here's the thing about that, especially in this day and age, almost every county has their assessor data online. So your ability to go in there and see the acreage and the taxable value can be gotten in minutes, right? So, Joe, I've seen a lot of your presentations, especially from some, not the big flashy urban areas. And I think the biggest thing is like the math always works in the favor of downtown development. What's the most egregious example you've seen in terms of like the most modest rundown 2-story building in a downtown still outperforming the big box?
Oh God, I mean, I've got hundreds of examples. There's a 2-story building in downtown Charleston it's called the Red Dot Liquor Store. It's like 12 feet by 18 feet. It's the oldest continuously operating liquor store in the entire United States. Although for 20 years it wasn't called a liquor store. Prohibition.
Not a speakeasy.
I don't know. They just changed the name, but it's the South. They're just like, oh yeah, sure, we can buy booze there. But anyway, that building is 13 million an acre. 13 million an acre. The Walmart is 900,000 an acre. And that's just a 2-story colonial building built in 1694. It's just, this isn't hard. But the thing to think about is when you see one of our models and you see that big mountain in the downtown for places that have it, like Asheville, and then you look at how flat it is in suburbia, it's that living off the largesse of the downtown and transferring those taxes out that actually rewards sprawl. This is the reason why we have sprawl is because we drained our downtowns, period. Now, for places like Rancho Cucamonga, California, love that name. It's part of the Inland Empire. Rancho Cucamonga never built their downtown.
Yes, it
so
is.
You know Rancho?
Oh,
That's
keep
a
going.
California boy right there.
I will tell you how and why, but go ahead.
I want to blow your mind for a second here. Okay, we're gonna do a little side hustle here because we got to do Rancho Cucamonga.
Dude, let's do a side hustle.
Also, while you're queuing that up, if anybody has seen the sequel to the movie Friday, gotta love Friday. Good Lord, if you're a Southern California kid, you have to watch. What?
Bye, Felicia.
Ice Cube, as my 6-year-old daughter she would correspondingly say, yay, yay. Ice Cube, Chris Tucker, Friday. Man, it's a cult. That's your assignment, Commissioner Smith. You're watching that. Go to the last blockbuster in America. Pick it up. Watch it this weekend.
It's in North Pole, Alaska, No,
all right. So Joe has his analysis of
the sequel. Wait a minute. The sequel
next Friday
in Rancho. Yes, the sequel was in Rancho Cucamonga, California. Now, Joe.
Okay, so Rancho Cucamonga is part of the ooze that just flies out of Los Angeles. And there's this area called the Inland Empire. Now I have a model up that shows the potency of Los Angeles. You can see downtown Los Angeles.
Oh and my God, my house is in this map. Go
ahead. If you've never been to LA, like for people on the East Coast, there is nothing like the LA metrosphere. It is bizarre. and you have hundreds of cities that all operate off this other city as their downtown, which is super weird. But anyway, so the Inland Empire, this is the Inland Empire. And let's just look at these numbers for a second. The Inland Empire is 4.6 million people in 27,000 square miles, right? Now, as my analyst, Josh McCarty, was doing this, and Josh is a riot. Josh, he's a sort of a map punk. Josh is like, hey, Joe, check this out. It's the same area and population as South Carolina. And my head just went like, what? Like, I can tell you Charleston, Columbia, Greenville, these are real cities. Like, can you name, maybe some of us present, Chris can name a few cities in the Inland Empire, but for most of us, it's like, what's there? And so when we presented to them, we said, look, y'all, somebody's got to step up in this mess and be a real place. And you have an opportunity. So this is Rancho Cucamonga, and I'm showing the model of it right now. It's just pretty much all suburban. This is what the downtown is in the model, and I'm just highlighting a little area. You wouldn't be able to tell this was the downtown when you look at the whole city. It looks like a shag carpet, right? Yeah. And so
what Joe is showing is the property tax yield per acre of parcels, and the graphics kind of look like, a city with skyscrapers and other things is kind of the visual that he's come up with. And this is really showing in Rancho Cucamonga, kind of spread like peanut butter, shag carpet, nothing really is a height higher than the other.
And I'll just, one of the metrics that we tell people and just say, look, if you could do something, take the footprint of your downtown against your city, which is your downtown takes up about 2.5%, in Rancho's case, 2.5% of this area of the city. And this is what it punches in the property tax base. So you're putting in about 2.5, you're consuming 2.5% of the land. You're only putting in 1.5% of the money. So you're actually going backward. Wow. Your footprint in the area is less than the footprint in the property taxes. You're a 2.6 ratio. to show you how bad this is. Now we're doing this at the start of a comp plan for them. And I'm like, so I want to show you why this is bad. This is what you guys are. This is Brevard, North Carolina, which is a population of 8,000 people. Now in the model, you can clearly see where downtown is that Purple Mountain, but their ratio of their downtown to city is a 1-7. Asheville is a 1-6. Y'all, you should have been at least a 1-6. If you grew up your downtown at the same rate that you grew your city, you'd be so much more potent. So here's the deal. Your downtown right now is only worth $400 million. And had you grown your downtown up, and I'm not saying force everybody to live downtown, it's just if you did something to make a downtown here, you'd have a $4 billion downtown. You totally missed this opportunity. It's your fault. And they were just like, what? And so then we're just like, hey, work with your planner to try to figure out how to make a downtown happen because you need to make some money. We're out of here.
So Jess is going to ask you a question in just a second before we transition into our lightning round. I'm just going to shed a little context on this because I went to Ontario High School and lived basically the next no-name city over from this. And
inland,
funny, yes, in the IE, as my wife would say, the 909. Which area code, running joke there, insiders baseball. But anyway, I'll tell you my little brief story, which was, good God, you're resonating with me here, Joe. So my junior year of high school, I mean, this is flat, straight up truth, man. I was witness to 2 shootings in 3 days. And Rancho Cucamonga High School had just been built. And I'm telling my mom, who's picking me up after I just watched one 75 feet away from me, I'm getting my braces worked on. So she's picking me up to go to the dentist. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to believe what I just saw, like literally right there. And I said, I think I'd like to go to the new Rancho Cucamonga High School. She's just kind of like, that really didn't happen. No, come on. You're just pulling my leg, right? I'm like, wait, you have no idea. So anyway, so Rancho was the new shiny city, on the hill, although it really wasn't much of a hill. And it's really all built on soft ground because it's at the base of the hill, as you know. So it's just one flood away from, biblical times. But my point is with Rancho was like just all of it is sprawl city, but there's no history in Rancho at all, really much. And it's all in that I-15 corridor, which is the wind and the Santa Anas come through. It's a hellhole of nothing but the same house.
Hold on.
Oh, you're going to defend Rancho? Good heavens.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, you just described most of California. I mean, come on now. It's like, it's on this, like, earthquake could happen any day. Everybody's like, let's just keep on living. It's just, there's highways everywhere. It's not just Rancho. I mean, come on. Inland, Ontario, right. Like what's Ontario got going for it? And so at least Rancho, they're just like, this is screwed up. We need to do something about it. When we did this model, the vice mayor, who is an ex-high school math teacher, she's retired. She's like, oh my God, this
could have been your
amazing.
teacher, Chris.
She's like, every student in high school needs to see this presentation. I now understand. I want a Purple Mountain. Like they got it. They have
their
this,
high
like,
school were purple and black. So there you go.
And they also had a history. They had all this wineries that were there. There's some historic wineries that were there. I mean, it's unfortunate. Most of the Inland Empire is a big ooze of junk. It's not right. It's sort of their fault, but it's really not, because they just did what everybody else did, but at scale.
So I joke with Chris because, here he is seeing drive-by shootings and things in high school. And here I was listening to NWA driving around Franklin, North Carolina, thinking we were hardcore.
And meeting famous people at your summer job.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, talking to Waylon Jennings and Monty Anderson and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's so fancy. Listen, Joe, this has been a lot of fun chatting with you. And I just want to know, before we kind of get closing down here, is what are you and the Urban Three have going on today that people should know about?
You want to get dark? All right, let's have fun.
Yeah, let's go dark. Let's do it.
This is going to be let me share screens again. Sorry. So Don's
this is why we put this on Facebook.
Yeah. So my city and my county adopted reparations.
Yeah,
after the murder of George Floyd. And Don's lived here, I've lived here, we know this place. And it was like, oh, this all sounds great, but are you really going to do anything? So we all sat down as a team and we put in about 300 hours to analyze our tax system, because our city used to have a red line map. If those folks that don't know redlining, in 1934, as part of the New Deal program, the FDR administration, this is an inconvenient truth, they adopted this stuff called redline. We normalize it as redlining, but it's an HOLC map. What they did is they expanded mortgages from 7 years to 30 years. And in that, which think about that economically, that's a huge shift in how we make our communities. So when people say America is all about single family housing, we weren't that way. That was changed in 1930 because our government was freaked out about socialism in Europe. So the best way to fight socialism is make people homeowners. And it's funny, we've just kind of normalized that well, you got to be American to own a home. It's like, well, it always hasn't been that way. So in doing that, if you lived in one of these red neighborhoods and you wake up one day, you can't sell your house because no one can get a mortgage. Redline neighborhoods, if you were Black, or as their term, if you were a Negro, your neighborhood got redlined. It didn't matter to the percentage. We did an analysis in Tacoma, Washington. There is 9 blocks in Tacoma, Washington that were redlined because of 3 families that were Black. 9 blocks. That's insane. The immigrants were the other ones. They called it infiltration of immigrants. The other, in 1930s, the biggest infiltration class were Italians. So a lot of Italians got redlined. Watch out for me, I can take away your value. Anyway, that went on for 30 years until 1968. So you see this legacy effect. So we analyzed, this is our county. We analyzed our race. White people are in blue, Black people are in green. A lot of people know Asheville by the Biltmore Estate, which is this mansion owned by the Vanderbilts. And what people don't know about Asheville is that the Vanderbilt mansion was really a real estate development for a big subdivision called Biltmore Forest that is 99% white. Right across the street from it is a Black neighborhood called Shiloh that's mostly Black. Sidney Powell used to own a house in Biltmore Forest. Reggie Harrell has a house in Shiloh. This is Reggie's house. This is Sydney's house. Reggie's got this, it's kind of a vernacular old style house. There's a pickup truck in the front yard. It's really needs some improvement. Sydney's house is kind of like your typical ranch burger. When you look at the data, the dirt value in Sydney's neighborhood is about $400,000, a little bit over, and Reggie's is 181. So that checks out. The dirt should be worth more in her neighborhood versus Reggie's. But check this out. Reggie's house is actually valued more per square foot at $125 versus Sydney's. Could you look at those 2 pictures and say, oh yeah, definitely Reggie's house, killing it? Of course not. I sat down with our assessor. I'm like, Keith, explain this to me. And he's like, well, Powell's house has more square footage. I'm like, dude, this isn't toilet paper. It's not like we're going to Costco and buying a house. It doesn't get cheaper when you buy more of it. She's got 4 bathrooms. Reggie's got 1. And how about this? From the last assessment to this assessment, how is Reggie's house double the desirability at growing it? Oh, sorry, this is the tax production. This is the growth. So Reggie's house is growing at 266%, or think of it this way, 2.7 times the growth versus Sydney's at about 1.3 times growth. So what we're seeing is an accelerant in the Black neighborhoods that you're not seeing in the white neighborhoods.
So we're still redlining. We're just doing it under the guise of property tax policy.
Well, that's actually, that's kind of get to that. We, of course, we're map nerds. We made these maps. This is a map showing the change in land value from one assessment to the next. And we're seeing how it's not all consistent. There's a bunch of, it looks like mesas in Arizona or something like that all over the place. This is my office downtown. If we're to walk across the highway into my neighborhood called Montford, you see how it just jumps up all of a sudden in certain areas. So I asked the assessor, I'm like, what's going on here? And he goes, well, there's different tax neighborhood codes. And I'm like, wait, inside my neighborhood, there's different tax neighborhood codes. So just zooming into this, have y'all ever heard of a tax neighborhood code? I hadn't.
Nope.
So I'm like, who drew this map? And he's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, where did this map come from? He's like, I don't know. So this is 2 properties side by side. It's hard to describe the dirt value change graphically to people in the audience. So please watch the Facebook video. But basically, these 2 houses that are literally side by side are 200% difference in their land change from one assessment to the next. This is how wildly bizarre the assessment system is. And we all take it at face value that it seems to be worked out. So back to Reggie's neighborhood, one of the reasons why it looks the way that it does, and if you'll notice, all the tax neighborhood codes are level, right? So the narrative that we've gotten comfortable with is, hey, Joe, it's not the system's fault. It's your fault because you're the white guy that moved into Reggie's neighborhood. You bought up the value of the house. You set the new market value. So therefore, all the neighborhood is the same value. That's indeed true. That is an economic effect called gentrification, right? When you look across the roadway over to the rich, wealthy neighborhood of Biltmore Forest, there's clearly been 2 transactions in this one sub-neighborhood code. And notice how it's completely flat, but for those 2 properties. So what's going on that side of the street is not gentrification, apparently. And I'll close with this one property. This is 22 acres on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's a 16,000 square foot house right there, because we all need a 16,000 square foot house. It's got a 2,500 square foot finished basement. And when you look at the property card, this is kind of comical. 2011, would somebody please read the value of this property in 2011? What do you see there?
3.95 million.
Okay. 2022, what is the value of that property?
3.057 million.
How does a property lose $1 million worth of value? Now, the other thing is, I want to question the fact that this is a 22 acre property with a 16,000 square foot house on it. This should be close to $15-16 million worth of value, not 3. Plus it's losing value. So when you look at the Biltmore neighborhood, like there are some houses that are gaining value, about 270 of them, but there's many more houses. 55% of the neighborhood are losing value, which means a net result loss of 40 million. So I think we need to start an urban renewal program. I mean, this is a clear blight going on in these rich neighborhoods. Somebody needs to help out Chad and Cassidy.
Special
so
for William
Cecil,
Cecil, who's heir of the Biltmore estate. So
who happens to own the Biltmore estate. So what that results in, we're undertaxing the Biltmore neighborhood by $4 million. We're overtaxing the Black neighborhood by 1.5 million. This is patently unethical, inequitable, and unfair. That $4.4 million that we didn't get from that rich neighborhood would fund 111 teachers in our community. This is mind-blowing to me. And so the thing is like, we're not even bothering doing this math. Like, why aren't we looking at this stuff? And we're doing this in 17 counties around Western North Carolina. We're going out to Franklin. We're gonna get Don's County. Ooh. And we're gonna be publishing that in June.
Go Panthers.
Yeah. It's that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're doing this with strong towns as well. So there's going to be a lot of media rolling out about this. Obviously, you see I'm on fire about this stuff. We're playing checkers in the middle of a chess match. You know, it's like, we're like, oh, gentrification. Like, we're not even taxing Airbnbs like hotel rooms. Yeah. We're taxing them like houses. It's like, oh no, it's a hotel room. Why aren't we taxing them like a commercial property? And that completely disrupts the housing market. Every community I've been to is like, we can't afford to live here. It's like, well, duh. The market just shifted and you're not even looking at it. That's a good way to start the weekend.
And something we
drink,
say,
right?
well, we say that's why we do a whiskey pairing. But, you know, we've said this about multiple things: transportation, land use, taxation. You know, we always think that maybe it's about money. We don't have enough money. We can't do it. No. At the end of the day, we're figuring out that it's not actually a money issue. It's a decision issue.
So we challenged our commissioners, our county commissioners. I sat down with them. I said, look, we know that there's at least a $6.9 million per year subsidy to the rich, with an additional, I want to say it was close to 4.4 million, as you saw there, just in that one neighborhood, but also another 4.4 million in this thing called Discovery that we weren't capturing. When you add it all up, it's about 120 something million dollars of welfare money that we're committing to people that don't need it. And I said, so you've adopted these reparations. We need to change the system, and it's going to be complicated. It's going to cause some arguments. Now, I'll tell you this: when we were doing this, they asked me to present to the realtors board, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll do that. And so there are these 2 guys at the realtors board. They're awesome. David West and Mike Buttram. David is your very Asheville, kind of very flexible, hip, hip guy, is very liberal. Mike is dyed-in-the-wool conservative. He lives in Biltmore Forest. And Mike likes to brag about being a Republican, which is kind of like a unicorn in Asheville. And so I'm presenting to them, doing a Zoom call, and I showed all of that stuff. I showed them a lot more than that. Mike, the Republican, has this conniption. He's like, wait 1 minute, Joe, wait 1 minute. Wait a minute. Are you saying that I need to pay more taxes? And I'm like, yeah, keep going, Mike. And he goes, if I pay more taxes, I won't be able to afford to live in my house. I'm like, really? Let me get my little violin here. Let me start playing it for you. So what
and he's
you're
holding a
saying
little
is,
violin for those of you on the.
I
Where
have
did
like a little
you
4-inch
get that?
violin.
I want
need
that.
You need to have a 4-inch because it's a little case. So I said,
Wow.
so what you're saying we need to do is you need to be able to live in your house, so other people have to pay to keep you there, particularly poor Black people across the street. Is that what you're saying, Mike? And now, to his credit, he goes, fair enough, Joe. That was really funny. He goes, but what are you saying? I'm like, look, Mike, there's a Kmart that's 180,000 square feet on one of our main drives. The whole entire building, 180,000 square feet, is valued at $200.
Mm.
There's a lot of crap in the system that if we start making it better, your taxes might actually go down. But you can't argue that what's happening over in Shiloh is fair. And he goes, no, certainly not. Now, to his credit, when we were presenting to the county's committee on this, he actually called in and says, everybody needs to see Joe's presentation on this, and we need to do the right thing. Unfortunately, my commissioners aren't. They're cowards. They aren't doing the right thing right now. We're just going to hammer them until they do it. This is just completely wrong.
Well, Joe, you are definitely a person that rocks the boat, which is precisely why we asked you to be on and challenging this profession that we all, love, but also at times are just maddened by. I'm still thinking about how the pseudoscience of traffic impact studies is what's used to basically pay for Jess's drinks at the Palmer bar, right? So that's a good thing, Jess, right? But we want to
y'all need to do a piece when we're talking about bars. Why do bars have parking requirements?
Yeah.
Like, hello.
Can we promote drunk driving anymore?
Yes. So we need to quickly transition to our lightning round. This is just for fun before we call it an episode. And we're just going to pepper you with stupid questions that and hopefully can endear you to our audience even more. So I'm just going to start off. Tell me, what's the best barbecue in Asheville?
12 Bones.
I was wondering if you're going to go 12 Bones. There's some others, but okay. All right.
So another Joe sticker he has is the infrastructure fairy. Joe, what do you leave under your pillow at night for the infrastructure fairy?
Little piece of asphalt.
Joe, I want to know what kind of.
Before we get on this, do you realize asphalt is a byproduct of gasoline production? So once we get 100% electrified cars, how are we going to get asphalt? Anyway, sorry.
No, Joe. So
you
tell
and
me
your questions.
what kind of beard oil are you using these days?
I don't use a beard oil. This is all natural.
So Christmas gift idea, beard oil for Joe. Okay, we got you.
So when you play Monopoly, do you just sit there and ruminate on how Baltic Avenue is subsidizing Park Place and Boardwalk?
I think of Henry George taxation. Did you know that y'all know Henry George and land value taxation?
No.
Henry George is a land value tax economist from the 1800s, and he thought it was patently unfair that we tax people on building improvements, because he's like, we should be taxing based on location in land, because somebody that could step off the Mayflower could just sit on land in Boston. Meanwhile, we have these immigrants coming over. And if you don't have any building on the land, so think surface parking lot, you have all that infrastructure investment with no money coming out of it. The average parking lot in Indianapolis is valued at 75 cents a square foot. No taxes. You get no taxes out of it. So you're essentially financially upside down with a vacant land or surface parking. So it spurred this huge movement. It was like Strong Towns circa 1880, where you would do these conferences and everybody became Georgist and all this stuff. This woman, Elizabeth Maggie Phillips, look up her picture. She has spectacular eyebrows. They're like this big. And she thought adults are too set in their ways. So she invented a board game called Landlord's Game, and to teach us land value taxation. And that was basically stolen from her and became Monopoly. The rules of engagement in Monopoly are land assembly, location, and you put buildings on it and you win the game. Somehow we can't translate that into city building. It's mind-blowing to me. So sorry, you brought up Monopoly. You got that story.
No, I'm looking up eyebrows of
eyebrows right now.
Joe, Target, Walmart, or Costco? Which of those three was the last one you went into?
Target.
Good
but
man.
I will say, so in defensive cities, if your city runs off retail taxes, again, don't hate the player, hate the game. Costco's have the highest retail per square foot of the three of them. They're also the smallest stores. The Costco is the best thing you can get. We don't have a Costco in Asheville, but if you did, like that's if you're going to have any of the three evils, I would go with the Costco.
We have 2 in Anchorage.
Watch out.
Best gas prices here.
You are a top 100 most influential urbanist. I'm curious though, what other top 100 list would you rather be on?
Well, I'll tell you, since that list came out, I've been gunning for Hippodamus to Miletus. Like that, I'm going to take that guy down. And it's like he invented the street grid. Come on now, that's like a one-trick pony. So I got some life left in me. The other top list that I'd like to be on, I don't know.
Is there a skill that you have that you'd like to, find your way onto a list?
You ever
little violin playing? Is there a top?
Oh yeah, I could be the
clogging?
top. I'm not a good clogger. I would like to be the. I would like to be. Don could probably do that. It's like
I can. Yes, I have a trophy.
He has a trophy.
I think he's full of shit. I've never seen it in person.
I am a good bocce player, so I'd like to be on a bocce list. Top 100 bocce players of all time.
I love bocce.
So Joe, when we both lived in Asheville, we were on essentially the same street with the same address, a place versus a circle. What was the weirdest piece of my mail that you ever got?
Blogging monthly. Ooh, look at that center.
Just kidding.
You set yourself up for that.
No, I used to joke that I get Joe's cable bill. He gets my Hustler. So
you're going Hustler? Wow, I did not know that about you.
Classy.
AAA magazine or something like that. I used to get like some weird stuff of yours.
It's the AARP magazine that's showing up.
Oh, hey, I got my AARP membership. Do you know you can get?
I got mine too.
You can get great discounts off of popcorn at the movie theaters. It makes that $15 a year all worth it.
So they blend it up a little bit for you and make it easier to eat, or what's going on?
So you're actually a member? I couldn't commit to that.
They're a client
Associate?
and they're really good to us, so I've got to return the favor.
Okay.
$15. You got to bill that out.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you. We're going to need to call this an episode. All of us need to get going. I know it's a busy time of year. Thank you so much for your time. This has been everything and then some. I mean, man, you brought visual aids. That's a first. See, this is how you ascend that top 100 list. Mm-hmm. Forget the Fortune magazines. It's the Planning Commission podcast. You just went 5 notches up.
Never brought slides.
Right. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Commissioners, it's been a good time. We're going to call this an episode. I do need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. With that, another episode is in the can. We'll see you next time. Check us out, YouTube, Amazon, all the wonderful places you get your podcast, and Christmas episode forthcoming. Thank you all. See you on the flip side. Bye. Listener. Hey, listener, that's you. Would you like more content? Well, if you would, check out our YouTube page. Watch us there. Go to our Facebook page. Like us there. We do live episodes about every couple weeks, and all of our episodes are available on both of those platforms, in addition to Apple, Spotify, and a whole bunch of other places where you get your podcasts. Tell us what you think. What about some guests or organizations that you think we should interview? We're game. Let us know. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. And we'll try to keep up the good work. Now get back to your packet.